The Japanese-American civil rights activist Yuri Kochiyama was born and raised in San Pedro, California. She and her family were among the 120,000 Japanese Americans who were rounded up in a wave of anti-Japanese hysteria that followed the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Here she recalls her experiences in the camps.
I was red, white, and blue when I was growing up. I taught Sunday school and was very, very American. But I was also very provincial. We were just high school kids rooting for our team. I was 19 at the time of the evacuation. I had just finished junior college. I was looking for a job and didn't realize how different the school world is from the work world. In the school world, I never felt racism. But when you got into the work world, it was very different. It was 1941, just before the war. I finally did get a job at a department store, but for us back then, it was a big thing because I don't think they ever hired an Asian before. You see, I tried because I saw a Mexican friend of mine get a job there. Everything changed for me on the day Pearl Harbor was bombed. On that very day, December 7, the FBI came and they took my father. He had just come home from the hospital the day before. For several days, we didn't know where they had taken him. Then we found out he was taken to a federal prison at Terminal Island. Overnight, things changed for us. Most Japanese Americans had to give up their jobs, whatever they did, and we were told we had to leave. The Edict 9066, President Roosevelt's edict for evacuation. It was in February 1942. We were moved to a detention center that April. We were sent to an assembly center in Arcadia, California in April. It was the largest assembly center on the West Coast, having nearly 20,000 people. There were some smaller centers with about 600 people. They were all along the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California. There were many, many assembly centers, but ours was the largest. Most of the assembly centers, they were either fairgrounds or racetracks. So many of us lived in stables, and they said you could only take what you could carry. I was so red, white, and blue. I couldn't believe this was happening to us. America would never do a thing like this. This is the greatest country in the world. So I thought, this is only going to be for a short while, maybe a few weeks or something, and they'll let us go back. At the beginning, no one realized how long it would go on. I didn't feel any anger that much because I thought maybe this was the way we could show our love for the country, and we shouldn't make too much fuss or noise. We should abide by what they ask of us. I'm a totally different person now. I was so naive about many things. The more I think about it, the more I realize how little you learn about American history. It's just what they want you to know. We always called the camps relocation centers while we were there. Now, it feels apropos to call them concentration camps. It's not the same as the concentration camps of Europe. Those, we feel, were death camps. Concentration camps were a concentration of people placed in an area and disempowered and disenfranchised. So it is apropos to call what I was in a concentration camp. Now, historically, Americans have always been putting people behind walls. First, there were the American Indians who were put on reservations. Africans in slavery, their lives were on plantations. Chicanos doing migratory work and the kinds of camps they lived in. And even the Chinese, they worked on railroad camps where they were almost isolated, dispossessed people, disempowered. And I feel those are the things we should fight against so it won't happen again. This whole period of what the Japanese went through is important. If we can see the connections of how often this happens in history, we can stem the tide of these things happening again by speaking out against them.